So you think you are an architect. Alberti in 15th century Italy, the problem of facade in architecture, and laid out a theoretical framework based on which he designed and constructed many buildings. Okay, let me grab this picture. The Santa Maria in Florence. The composition of facade is the most important thing. Based on the appearance, we pass our verdict whether a building is ugly or beautiful. Appearance is surely not limited to exterior in architecture, it continues to the interior. How a perfectly nice plan could look so ugly as a building. I would like to show my appreciation and talk about some of the object of design that demonstrates modernity, timelessness, efficiency and beauty. Nepali object. Tilahari. Flower and thrones, which is represented by a spike. Flowers and thrones are essential part of Nepali aesthetics and still is one of the best-selling sports car. I wanted to show what I meant when I said Alberti's emphasis on facade. This wall on landscape is there primarily to accommodate the plague, but is transformed into something beautiful. But let's not forget, the fine also exists in ordinary. I'm sure this step was not first designed and drawn in a drawing board. So you think you are an architect. I hope you are good at it and equally good at host of other things like a Renaissance man, like Alberti in 15th century Italy, who was historian, theoretician, painter, etc. etc. So he was so many things and good at all those things. And who took up the problem of facade in architecture and laid out a theoretical framework based on which he designed and constructed many buildings. Okay, let me grab this picture. The Santa Maria in Florence. So we can see that, what he meant by the facade, the composition of facade is the most important thing. And so we can see many other examples of Alberti and how he has worked with the facade and how he has composed and ordered the facade. So anyway, namaskar to JAP Chat, an ongoing presentation by an architectural design firm in Kathmandu, Nepal. And I'm your host, Jayendra Sunwar. Of course, most of us architects can only hope to be somewhere closer to where Alberti stood. But the importance of becoming a master of all was strongly established back in Bauhaus days, where students had to graduate from other art and design major to become eligible for study of architecture. Based on the appearance, we pass our verdict whether a building is ugly or beautiful. Appearance is surely not limited to exterior in architecture, it continues to the interior. What appears is the vertical surface of a building. The floor plan of a building as a horizontal plane is more about use and efficiency on which we move or travel around. Architects are often perplexed by how a perfectly nice plan could look so ugly as a building. I believe this is where Alberti comes in. It is the facade that is anchored in interior and uses. That is where I would express the importance of an architect who, if not a Renaissance man, at least be able to appreciate the wonder of art and science, sports, culture, and nature, and etc. etc. like a true Renaissance man. In this episode, I would like to show my appreciation and talk about some of the object of design that demonstrates modernity, timelessness, efficiency, and beauty. I hope you will agree with me. So, why not start with one of the most precious traditional Nepali object, Tilahari, a gold pendant on red or green or yellow bead, what we normally call pote, a necklace worn by a married woman. You might find it a little bit sexist, the widowed woman or unmarried woman are not supposed to wear like pote and tilahari. But anyway, this jewelry is made of 7 rings. There are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 rings, of which alternative rings are like, spikes. Like these 3, they are spike, like 7 spike. it's interesting that in Nepali aesthetic parlance, or whatever you may call it, flower and thrones, which is represented by a spike. Flowers and thrones are essential part of Nepali aesthetics in case of a jewelry. So this is very interesting how people thought that, like flowers and thrones, soft and hard, smooth and like pointed. But anyway, so that sense of aesthetics is also expressed in this traditional jewelry, what we call Tilahari. This Tilahari comes in three sizes normally, I would say. One which is worn very close to a neck, and the other is Maili Tilahari. That's the normal, most popular Tilahari, which is worn as a necklace. And the other one is big Chadke Tilahari, which is worn across the shoulder. I'm intrigued by the aesthetics of Tilahari and sex appeal of this small Tilahari, which is worn close to your neck. The design of this object achieves its static goal and timeless appeal while being simple in design and modern in appearance. Personally, the object that I would like to wear is a wristwatch tank by Cartier. Louis Cartier worked in a watch factory which he bought later and ultimately produced the watch tank in 1917. The watch appeared in a rectangular bezel measuring 32 by 27 mm lock to lock. So instead of a regular round bezel, this watch appeared in a rectangular shape and black Roman numeral on a white dial and no second hand, and date display on 3 o'clock, and blue sapphire gemstone on the crown, and brown leather strap. Cartier also makes belt. This is where they can excel on all the craftsmanship, because that's what they've been doing, that's what they do. This watch, though it's considered to be a unisex, I believe the name tank reflects its ruggedness and tough appearance at the time when tank emerged as a symbol of tough fighting machine, like prior to First World War. I mean, in this small space and so few elements to work with, this piece has achieved so much. There are numerous variants of tank and they continue to produce to this day. Presently, the one with the quartz movement comes for as low as $5,000. I would have preferred the large tank with a golden strap. This one does have a golden strap, and this looks very, very golden, but this is not Cartier. This was the watch, presented to me by my uncle during my marriage many, many years ago. Let's shift the gear and zoom in on Porsche 911. That came around 1963 and still is one of the best-selling sports car. It must have been because of its unusual appearance. But the appearance of the car is accompanied by excellence in engineering, comfort, and safety. When I saw it for the first time, I was of two minds whether the car was ugly or pretty. It must have been because of its unusual shape. Porsche continued to produce this model 911 to this day, and among its many variants, I prefer the older one between 1974 to 1994, where the headlight was still very articulated and the shape was, like that. Spoiler was like slight one, because there are some variants where they have this big huge spoiler and they call it whale or something like that, but I prefer the slight one. But the spoiler comes up as you speed the car. Its engine is placed in the rear. The grill for the air intake, that is such an integral part of the aesthetics of the car. It's really nice to see those grills on the back of a car, and it looks very nice. All the small things looks very nice. Even the font, Carrera 911, looks very interesting. And also, like, you wonder, like in America, they have the emergency number as 911, and does it have any correlation or any relation with this thing? I don't know. On the passing, I would like to mention a classic by French, Citroën DS, that came out around year 1955, heralding excellence in design and engineering. I mean, this car, is this like precursor to Porsche? Because, I mean, it was the effort of French and Italian designer. But, I mean, just to think that it came back as far as 1955, it's just amazing. I mean, this car, I mean, also like, it really caught the public imagination when it came out, and people really flocked to it. But it didn't last as Porsche 911 did. In the TV show The Mentalist, it appeared once again to complement the character of Patrick Jen as a psychic detective. I don't know if you have seen the show. I think it's worth watch. It's an interesting show. Every now and then the car appears here and there, and it's pretty, noteworthy. Oh, what is that car kind of thing? Anyway, let's get off from this fast car to talk about a violent object. Automat Kalashnikov, known as AK-47. That came out in Soviet Russia in the year 1947. Of course, the Soviet didn't reinvented the wheel. It was built on the knowledge of American rifle M1 Grant and German STG-44. The rifle is light, easy to use and maintain, and extremely reliable and cost-effective, with price tag of $600 to $1,000. Uniqueness of its appearance is derived by the wooden casing over the metal barrel, gas chamber and recoiling spring top barrel, curved magazine for 32 round, wooden pistol grip, and the angled traditional wooden butt. I happened to see this one YouTube video where they fire almost 900 plus round without jamming the rifle. And this is just amazing. All the wooden part, was all burning and everything, and it was still firing. It's an amazing rifle. Anyway, after all this violence, I think we should calm down with this image of Custom 72, an iconic eyewear by Masunaga. Gosemon Masunaga in 1905 opened Masunaga Optical in Japan. The brand built its reputation for excellence. Handcrafted eyewear made in Japan by this charismatic individual, Gosemon Masunaga. It is an example of how an individual single-handedly, not only with sense of aesthetics, but with attention to detail, control of manufacturing process and material, training craftsmen, and bringing together all the human resources locally, could make a nation known for the best eyewear maker in the world. It's interesting to know the motto of the company that says, "We manufacture excellent eyeglasses. We want to make profit if we can, but we do not hesitate to take loss." It is always in our thoughts to manufacture excellent glasses. These words are still the basis of code of conduct of our employees, says the present director of the company. This model Taka Gold that was created in association with this designer Takada could cost you $1,500. I would love to wear that one instead of this one. Okay. From the perfect fit of an eyewear, let's move to the comfort of a chair. Okay. As early as 1929, Mies van der Rohe designed this chair for Barcelona Expo, which is known as Barcelona Chair, of course. This curvy cone steel frame with quilted leather cushioned chair and ottoman condenses the idea of minimalist modernity in a chair. This idea later exploded with what we know as mid-century modern during 50s in furniture and home decor. The objects of mid-century modern are still very relevant. For example, this superleggera chair by Italian architect Ponti in 1957 and still is in production. From Italy, I think we should come back to Germany in the late 20s after the war, in time of German Workbund. Modernity in the book Complexity and Contradiction in Architecture says it started with Spanish steps in early 1700 Italy. But this piece, an affordable machine known as the Frankfurt Kitchen that measured 1.9 meter by 3.4 meter, was designed by a woman architect in 1926 for German Workbund, a social housing project for the war veterans. The kitchen exists in this context of this social housing designed for veterans. And I think the kitchen is over here. This kitchen, though criticized for its gender biasness, demonstrates the spirit of modernity while recognizing the importance of a kitchen as a technologically advanced machine in a residence. So we looked at this kitchen as a machine. A machine is a well-designed object that inherently encompasses modernity. Its aesthetic is anchored in its purpose and use. Interesting to note how beauty is achieved by manipulating the limited variables and limited space. Design of a street facade offers a similar challenge. In this line, I would like to show you a similar challenge that we undertook at JAP, the design of the street facade of the Kiran's building at Butowal. But first, let's make a small stop to refresh the spirit of Alberti and look at this small structure in landscape, an old water reservoir built in the year 1893 during the proliferation of colonial neoclassical architecture in Kathmandu. I wanted to show what I meant when I said Alberti's emphasis on facade. This wall on landscape is there primarily to accommodate the plaque, but is transformed into something beautiful with addition and arrangements of just the right amount of complexity. Behind this wall is underground water reservoir with double vaulted ceiling. The pilaster and the ornamentation on the wall is what is normally understood as composition of the facade. So we can see this pilaster scroll over here and the lantern kind of thing and this little arches. The skill, knowledge and the sense of aesthetics required to compose this facade is very different from working on floor plans. Or we can say architect was always aware of the possibilities of this facade while working on the floor plans. Now coming back to facade of Kiran's building in Butowal that lies in Tarai region of Nepal. The building is facing north and sits on the side street that terminates into a dead end. Kiran's office and showroom occupies the ground floor. The floor above, first floor and the second floors are rentable office space, and floor above that, the third and the fourth floor are dedicated to residential use of Kiran. This was the case of a typical street facade where we had to basically work with a flat vertical plane. To go about composing the facade, our intention was to, let's say, add just enough complexity, develop some articulation on the use of office and residential floor. For example, we thought we should somehow differentiate between this commercial and the residential use. Hint at the spirit of enterprise and institution, like Kiran's enterprising spirit and the institution, the business organization that he wants to build. So we wanted to bring that idea into this facade also, and celebrate the entrance. Various elements of architecture such as louvers, mullions, recesses and projection had to be arranged on a rectangular vertical plane and create just enough variety by mixing material, maintaining solidity with just enough fragmentation of planes, glazing and openings, and accommodate geometry to create a memorable image. An aesthetic sense of an artist is a mystery. One way of developing it is to at least be able to appreciate all things fine. But let's not forget, the fine also exists in ordinary. Let me end this session with this ordinary image captured by Raju while touring a village in Dharan. Steps or ladder, whatever you want to call it. The structure of which, while being ordinary, is very, modern and very functional and very efficient, I would say. And, projecting a high degree of aesthetics. That's what I felt when I looked at this image. I'm sure this step was not first designed and drawn in a drawing board. It came out of somebody's mind, and it is so honest, so efficient, and so close to that person who built it. It is so human, and that's where I think it derives its aesthetics, being human. Somebody did it out of his heart. So I think that's where ingenuity and modernity is coming from. Namaskar, and I hope to see you on the next episode of JAP Chat. Take care.